Welcome back, class, to Writing 201. Today we'll talk about dialogue. Probably the most nerve-wracking skill in the craft of writing that I have ever had to continue to improve on. Now, readers have told me that my writing has a lot of strong voices, meaning each character that I have incorporated into my writing has a distinct way of speaking and their own personality. Now, it's not that I'm doubting myself, it's more that I'm very careful with dialogue, because I'm a real introvert, so I don't get out much, and it's very hard to make unique voices when you aren't that social. And what that means is, in order to create strong voices, you have to, get out of your house and get used to hearing different voices that aren't your own. And what that means is not someone who is similar to you, but any person that has their own way of speaking, their way of hesitating, or the opposite. Maybe they're a real chatterbox. There's all kinds of people in this world, and maybe the universe as well, that don't talk like you, don't act like you, don't react like you, don't have the same, point of view as you. And that's why really putting yourself out there, no matter how scared you are in terms of not wanting to be secluded, if you're that kind of person, because it's so tricky to be able to paint each character as if they're the star of the story, or even just the one scene. So one thing you can do is just go to a coffee shop. Just mind your own business, whether you're working on something or just there to have a cup of coffee. I don't know. You do you. But just listen. Just listen to how people talk. Let's say you have two women at a table, either across from you or on an angle. You can kind of see them, but if you look at them directly, it'll look creepy, so you just keep your head down and just listen. They might be talking about something that doesn't interest you at all, but you should still make the effort to listen. Just listen to how they communicate to each other, how they respond to one another. Because even if it's the most dull conversation you've ever heard, the most abstract thing you've ever heard in your life, it doesn't matter. What matters is you will understand that they have their own way of communicating and will have certain reactions to what the other person is saying. So let's say one woman says to the other something that was surprising. They would go, or maybe they would just come in with a question, really get in their face because they're so excited about the conversation. Or maybe they're stoic. Maybe they'll have no reaction to what that person was talking about. And then you go back to the other person. Okay? In conversation, there is back and forth. That's really the nutshell of what I'm saying. There's back and forth in communication. And when it comes to that, it really tells you how does that person think? And where are they in life? Emotionally speaking, and whatever, ordeal they're dealing with or good thing that's had happened to them. It's really important that you understand that. Really trying to understand human behavior. And dialogue is a big part of that. It is so big. Dialogue is such a huge part of life. You don't understand how vital it is to master the art of conversation, especially if you're like me, who doesn't really talk with that many people and really keeps to himself. So that's why it's really important that even when you're at work, to make conversation, whether you're doing that while working or on your lunch break or coffee break. And it's not that you have to force yourself to talk to people. It's more like you can't just be an observer. It's okay if if you're very shy and that's all your courage allows you to do, but just give it a little try. Try to make a little bit of conversation with people just to understand how people talk. And it's not something you have to do all the time. It's just good practice so that when you start to really practice dialogue in your storytelling, that you understand how people talk, because although you can get a good idea from a outer perspective, it's not the same as when you're in conversation. So what I'm trying to get to here is that your characters will feel like cardboard cutouts if you don't write good dialogue. They're going to be forgettable. Okay? Dialogue, if it's done well, can make each character, secondary or primary, feel memorable, because you will remember how they responded to the other character, or how they dealt with a situation, and it could be a transformative moment, or it could just be something small, just a little something that happened between them and someone they trust, or something, or someone they distrust completely, you know. And when you can understand that part of writing, then when you start to go into a series like I am, you will have a clear understanding of how that character can evolve through the series. If you don't understand how they speak from book one, from the first page really, then it becomes harder to create that character arc, because dialogue is such a huge part of who we are, and and storytelling. It's that much more nerve-wracking for someone who is an introvert, because if they're not used to hearing not just how other people talk, but also different environments. I had a phone call. Whatever environment that you're in, you need to learn to change it a little bit. So if your environment is home and work, like me, try on your days off to really get out of that. Not just for errands. Like, don't just go for errands. Try to really try new things. Not necessarily hobbies, just going in different places and understanding different environments, how people communicate there, how they enjoy themselves, or if they're annoyed, then maybe someone made them go there. You know, there's a lot to consider. So let's look at some examples, in books. Now, starting with The Austere Academy, okay, from Series of Unfortunate Events. I think that's book 5. Okay, very short example. Who dares interrupt a genius when he is rehearsing? He asked in a voice so loud and booming that it was enough to make anyone shy all over again. The Baudelaires, Klaus said quietly, looking at the floor. Mr. Poe said to come right to Vice Principal Nero's office. Mr. Poe said to come right to Vice Principal Nero's office, the man mimicked in a high, shrieky voice. Well, come in. I don't have all afternoon. And that's it for that example. So you see, there was a huge difference between Klaus and the vice principal, where Klaus was very polite and did his best to not insult the vice principal, and was rather shy. But the vice principal was rather full of himself, very just like, I am the king, you shall bow down to me. And also kind of childish, because he childishly mimics Klaus by saying, Mr. Poe said to come right to Vice Principal Nero's office. So that's a good example of making each character voice very strong. It may seem very subtle, but you can distinguish between the Vice Principal and Klaus very well. Next one. From my book, the first one, of the Boon and Jack series, Settled in Secret. A little longer, but just have a listen. These books are brilliant. I didn't know your parents were into such rich and diverse literature. Jacques was getting more and more excited as he dug through them. Even though Boon was listening to him, he merely shrugged as he lazily put back an old volume of Monte Cristo. He got up and climbed back to the window where he had first looked for Jacques. The wind had picked up aggressively, so much so that the clumsily put-together tool shed in the far right corner of the yard shook at every gust. Those books were here before we moved in. My parents hate books, so they chucked them down here. Pardon me, Boon, but if they hate books, why didn't they throw them away? Don't know. Don't care. You can have them if you want. Thanks, Boon, but I'm afraid I'm not allowed, well, anything. Jacques stared vacantly at a poem by Shakespeare as he pondered his vulnerability. Well, that stinks, but I'm not allowed anything either. What do you mean? Boon climbed back down from his view of the grass and sat back down next to Jacques. Look at my feet. Pardon? Oh, please, don't talk like that. It's super annoying. Just look at my feet. Boon wiggled his big right toe, making the rubber of his worn sole squeak. I've had these shoes since I was 7 damn years old. My parents don't give a crap about me. I beg of you, Boon. Please, don't use that word. Crap, 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 crap! Stop! Please stop! No, you have no idea how crappy it is here. My life sucks. In fact, sometimes it can be scary. Like a humongous hungry spider. Forgive my abrasion, but I do have an idea of how bad your life is. Remember that last week when we played Monopoly on your father, and your father came in completely out of his noggin and slapped you for no reason? Then pushed you up against the back door? Then dropped you like you were a bag of oranges and walked away without an apology? So that's it for that example. So you'll see there that's kind of the same thing as Austere Academy, where Jacques is the more polite and well-spoken, well-read type of character. More academically, like you saw in that discussion, where he said that he doesn't really read fiction books. He reads more like dictionaries and very sophisticated books. And Boon is more the urban, chill kind of boy. Last example. This big sucker, blah. Okay, just a quick one. So this is between Pennywise and Georgie at the beginning. Want your boat, Georgie? The clown smiled. George smiled back. He couldn't help it. It was the kind of smile you just had to answer. I sure do, he said. The clown laughed. I sure do. Ooh, that's good. That's very good. How about a balloon? Well, sure. He reached forward and then drew his hand back, reluctantly back. I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. My dad said so. Very wise of your dad, the clown in the storm drain said, smiling. How George wondered, could I have thought his eyes were yellow? Very wise indeed. Therefore, I will introduce myself. I, Georgie, am Mr. Bob Gray, also known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. Pennywise meet George Danbrow. George meet Pennywise. And now we know each other. I'm not a stranger to you, and you're not a stranger to me. Correct? I guess so. He reached forward again and drew his hand back again. How did you get down there? Storm just blew me away. I'll stop right there. But now you see, Georgie just sounds like a real timid kid, and the clown is playing mind games with him, basically trying to lure him into softening his guard, because he wants the kid, he wants the fear, he wants, you get it. Okay, so that's why dialogue is so important, because all 3 examples I showed you had different, energy. So really think about that when you're writing your dialogue. It's all about different energies, different interactions, different perspectives. Basically, make sure that each character stands on its own. Start asking yourself questions for each character that you create. It's all about really understanding each person, each character, whether they're human or not, to give them that human color. Okay? So really think about that when you're doing your dialogue, and keep reading as many books as you can. Diversify everything that you read, and how you live your life, and the people you interact with or don't interact with, and just, really enrich your skills. Okay? Have a good day, and happy reading. Bye-bye now.